Hello, my name is Yasu, working for Addis Ababa University, College of Health Sciences, City Africa. I am your tutor for Lesson 1. Just to give you an overview of this presentation. First, phase of clinical trial, starting from phase 0 up to phase 4 will be briefly described, followed by clinical trial authorization, focusing on purposes of clinical trial authorization, objectives of good clinical practice inspection, and responsibilities of national medicine regulatory authority with regard to clinical trials. Clinical trial is a planned experiment in human participants in an attempt to look for better intervention for future patients. The various phases of clinical trial include phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 0 clinical trial, which is also known as exploratory phase or pre-phase 1, is a human microdosing study at low doses found safe in animal studies conducted in few healthy volunteers. This phase does not provide data on safety or efficacy. The objectives of phase 0 clinical trial include checking drug behaves as expected in human, gather preliminary data on pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics parameters, and select those to progress to phase 1. Phase 1 clinical trial is the formal first time in human study and hence called initial clinical trial. It's conducted in few healthy volunteers, sometimes in few patients if drugs are potentially toxic. It, investigational products are orally administered as this route of administration is the safest route. As it does not involve randomization procedure, it's vulnerable to selection bias. Phase 1 clinical trial could be either phase 1A, which is a preliminary study with single ascending dose, or phase 1B study, which is further done with multiple doses. Its success rate is about 70%. The objectives of phase 1 clinical trial are to monitor safety in study participants and conduct kinetic studies. Phase 1 clinical trial, however, has got its own limitations. The following are some of its limitations. First, it is not possible to demonstrate all effects in healthy volunteers. For instance, if you want to demonstrate the antimicrobial activity of a given product, we need to have the microorganism in the body. In its absence, it's not possible to say whether there is antimicrobial activity or not. The second limitation is that therapeutic responses cannot be established in healthy volunteers, i.e., in absence of disease conditions, for which therapeutic response is expected to be observed. The third limitation is that there is risk of exposing individuals to adverse reactions unnecessarily. Once the investigational product has proved to be safe in healthy volunteers and have reasonable pharmacokinetic profile, it can move on to the next phase, i.e., phase 2 clinical trial. This phase of clinical trial is performed in patients under close supervision and hence called controlled clinical trial. Its success rate is about 33%. The objectives of phase 2 clinical trial include: 1. To establish therapeutic responses. 2. To monitor safety in patients. And 3. Determine the dosage schedule. Phase 2 clinical trial has got two types. The first one is phase 2A, which demonstrates efficacy. And this phase is a dose exploration phase, and hence the name pilot trial is given to this phase. While phase 2B is a pivotal trial which determines optimal dose. The limitation of phase 2 clinical trial is that it's not possible to make comparison with similar existing drug in the market. As phase 3 clinical trial is an extension of phase 2 clinical trial, it's also known as extended controlled clinical trial. Phase 3 trial involves large number of patients who are randomized in different arms. This phase is most expensive and time-consuming phase with more complicated design. Its success rate is estimated at 25 to 30%. The objective of phase 3 clinical trial is to formally assess therapeutic merits compared with standard drug available in the market and/or placebo in a relatively larger number of patients. Phase 3 clinical trial can be either phase 3A or phase 3B clinical trial. Phase 3A trial is an expanded clinical trial conducted in more than one arm of participants, while phase 3B trial is a large-scale clinical trial which involves larger number of population in one arm only. In this phase, the entry criteria is more relaxed compared to phase 3A. If The investigational product has passed all the tests subject in different pre-marketing trials, including phase 3. The sponsor may submit the new drug application to a regulatory body after appropriate dosage formulation is made. Once it gets approved by the regulatory authority, the IP will be released to the market. This slide shows the various stages of clinical development of drugs or products. Pre-marketing trials, starting from phase 0 up to phase 3, do have their own limitations. These limitations include impossibility of detecting long-term adverse reactions, involvement of limited number of participants, difficulty in addressing genetic and age differences, and hence there is a need to proceed to the next phase. This phase is what we call phase 4 clinical trial or post-marketing surveillance, in which long-term use in large number of patients after drug is marketed is assessed. The objectives of phase 4 clinical trial include: 1. To detect long-term adverse events. 2. To determine drug efficacy over long-term use. 3. To evaluate drug interaction, if any. And 4. To apply the drug for new indication, if applicable. Please attempt this multiple choice question by selecting the best answer and writing the corresponding letter by responding in the text. The second part of this presentation focuses on clinical trial authorization. All clinical trials which involve investigational products should get permission from governmental regulatory authority. This is what we mean by clinical trial authorization. Ethics approval is a prerequisite for clinical trial authorization, though parallel submission is also possible in some cases to both ethics committee and national medicine regulatory authority. The purposes of clinical trial authorization are: 1. To safeguard study participants involved in clinical trial, and 2. To make sure the generated data are credible. The National Medicine Regulatory Authority is the one which is responsible to issue clinical trial authorization for that given clinical trial through developing a guideline. The National Medicine Regulatory Authority permits investigational product importation, and also inspects following GCP guideline as to how the clinical trial is being conducted. The objectives of GCP inspection are to minimize the health hazard associated with the investigational product, to assess the level of compliance of the sponsor and or investigator with clinical trial regulations, to recast corrective action to be taken by the sponsor and or investigator, and to take enforcement action if deemed necessary. National Medicine Regulatory Authority has got responsibilities in clinical trial by inspecting appropriate documentation, including the ethical and regulatory approval document, signed informed consent forms, investigational product documents, including investigator brochure, as well as DSMB minutes and other relevant documents. Another responsibility of the National Medicine Regulatory Authority in clinical trial is to inspect on-site trial in order to check whether the trial is being conducted as per the approved protocol and to monitor the safety as well as efficacy issues. Please attempt this multiple choice question by selecting the best answer and writing the corresponding letter by responding in the text. Thank you. Thanks a lot.